Good morning, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Arts United Application Review Panel, convened to review and discuss the Indiana Arts Commission FY24 Arts Project Support Grant Program applications for Region 3. I'm Heather Clausen, located in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and today's review panel facilitator. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, and we are meeting online and streaming live for applicants and for the public to observe. There will be no contact between the panel or the audience about the disposition of applicants before, during, or after the panel meeting, and this meeting will be recorded and made available upon request. At this time, I will individually invite each of the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they're from in the state. Let's start with the panel. Ashley.
Hi, my name is Ashley Bickley McCrory. I'm a mezzo-soprano living in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I teach at Purdue Fort Wayne voice and other voice-related classes, and I sing with Heartland Sings and freelance.
Thank you, Ashley. Jonah.
Good morning. My name is Jonah Farnham. I also live in Fort Wayne, and I'm currently an operations assistant for the Fort Wayne Philharmonic.
Thank you, Jonah. Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Patterson, and I am the marketing specialist at Fox Products Corporation, which is a manufacturer of double reed instruments in South Whitley in Whitley County. And I live in Fort Wayne, and I'm also a freelance oboist there.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Jessica.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Shaw. I am the Director of Development for Fort Wayne Ballet and live in Fort Wayne. I am also a musician by trade.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Phil Slane.
Yes, I'm Phil Slane. I'm the director of the annual fund at Arts United of Greater Fort Wayne, and also serve as the program manager for Region 3 of the Indiana Arts Commission.
Thank you all so much. So I will announce the application and we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion in our panel review. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based on the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that applications do not need to be recapped since everybody has read it. So just provide your comments and feedback. After the first reader has finished, I will then ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for a full consensus, just thorough evaluation from different perspectives that each panelist brings to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will then open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we're only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. And at any point, I know we have a couple during our panel today. A panelist has a conflict of interest. That panelist will be placed into a virtual waiting room while the application is reviewed. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, I will ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of these broader discussions, and your scores will save automatically as a reminder. Are there any questions before we begin? Then let's get started. We will start with our first applicant today, which is Memorial Park Middle School. And our first reader is Ashley.
Okay. Sorry, I'm opening this up. Memorial Park Middle School. Okay, I think this jazz mentorship program at Memorial Park Middle School is a wonderful opportunity for private instruction for the students. It sounds like they'll be getting instruction both for technique as musicians and style coachings, which is great, from professional performers. The performance idea I thought was really cool also. So the students will learn from the professional musicians during the week and then kind of teach the audience during the performance, which is fun. There is mention in the application about professional performance, bringing professional performance to the audiences there in their neighborhood. But there's no detail about the guest musicians performing on the concert. So that was a question for me. It's great to see that the program has thrived for 28 years. The budget and the program that they attached mention a featured artist, but that is not really spoken about as far as this upcoming jazz mentorship program. So I wondered about that, if they know who their next artist will be or how they select their featured artist, because the artists that they talk about they seem to be artists that they bring in every year that are local. It is clear that the program will benefit the students and the wider school community. They don't talk about all of the underserved groups that are served by the school. It might have been nice to have some detail about that. I'm sure that they do serve racial minorities, children with different abilities, English language learners, but there's no information about that in the application, at least not in the answer where that's directly asked, in the question where that's asked. There's a lot of input from parents and staff. I'd be curious about how they gather input from students. It's great that they have translators, good accessibility. They mention that they gauge impact based on live stream views and the enrollment in their jazz programs, but they don't mention surveys or interviews or meetings to reflect on the event, and those kinds of things would likely be helpful. The uploaded PDF about marketing materials was a concert program as opposed to marketing material. It was a nicely done concert program. I did visit their Facebook page link and found a public Facebook event for last year's jazz mentorship program, but it's unclear how else they advertise the concert. And the timeline looks good and reasonable. The faculty is well qualified. The budget looks good. There's one part in the application where it says that they're applying for this year's jazz mentorship program, which is like next week or something. But the timeline makes it sound like they're applying for next year, so that makes sense. It's probably just a typo. But yeah, I think those are all my comments. In general, it seems like a strong program.
Thank you, Ashley, and we'll pass it over to our second reader now, which is Jessica.
Good morning. I'm going to add comments based on the section. So starting with artistic quality, I've got a couple comments here. It was shared about surveys and things like that. This program's been around for a very long time, and it's always cool to see those applications come in. But I'd really like to know some data, some just bullet points. It doesn't have to be written fancy or anything like that, but bullet points about how modifications for this continued program, as you're looking to grow better. It's clear that modifications were made, but I'd like to know more about how those decisions were made. And surveys would be a great way to do that. I also wanted a little bit more information about how the artists were, the professional musicians were relating with the community in the concerts. So it's very clear that the students are working during the week, and then once it gets to the actual concert, when you're talking about education for the whole community, I'd just like to know a little bit more about how that's organized to reach everyone. Also on the survey, going back to that, it says that there are great impacts for the students, and it lists teamwork and discipline and determination. So just for future knowledge, as you're writing things, I think as artists, we all know the benefits of artistic education. However, if you're building a survey, you could get some direct data that would justify listing those things, as opposed to them being broad sweeping statements, just as you're looking to improve. Artist support, I thought, was very clear. And so going down to community engagement, let me scroll down here. I talk a little bit about surveys again, and then a good way to showcase that you're developing this with the community. you could look at not only reaching out directly to students, which is great because that's directly within your control, but you could also get a lot of audience feedback that could give you direct results. Something to consider that I wrote down is like, does improv play a role in the concert? I think you could do a lot of good data points specifically with that and the points that you've listed out in your goals. Yeah, and I won't keep harping on surveys. So going down to project management, I thought that was very clearly written. My one suggestion in your timeline was actually to build in time to review and make sure you're analyzing your data, because that would answer a lot of questions, I think, moving forward. And that could either, I think it's always helpful to have that chunk marked at the end of the project, so you have kind of a post-mortem period to talk through what went well and all those things. And then at the beginning of your timeline, if you also list that time to review and refresh, since it's something that you just do annually and there's kind of a gap in between. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with our first two readers being done, I'd like to open it up to the panel for any new, additional, or opposing comments. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just have a quick one. While I do agree that more information about the featured artist would be helpful and good for the application, I did appreciate that they gave nice, succinct biographies for all of the local people that they do bring in. And for me, since the amount of the grant is not exceeded, or they'll be paying in those local Indiana artists more than the grant would pay. So for that reason, the lack of information about a featured artist doesn't bother me a ton, or to where I would remove a lot of points for it, though it would really, info about that would help it get a top score, I think. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, seeing none, I'll give you a little bit of time to update those scores and just let me know when you're ready to move on to our next application. Great. So if you can go ahead and we'll move on to our second application, which is the Miami County Recording Arts Studio. And our first reader for this will be Stephanie.
Great, thank you. And of course, I want to thank all of the applicants, and this applicant in particular, for taking the time to fill these out. And I'll just go through in order kind of our rubric that we have here. In terms of artistic quality, based on the application, I think there's definitely some artistic quality here. I just wish that there was some more clarity on that in what the application actually is for, because it's unclear if it's for the Miami County Arts Cooperative or a jam session or a recording studio. So some clarity with that would help award and earn some extra points for that. Also worth noting, the provided Facebook link, for an example, unfortunately doesn't work. It's a Facebook watch link, and with those, it's often difficult to see if they're going to work. I think it might be a private video or something, but unfortunately nothing does come up for that. Also, there's a provided flyer for the Peru jam sessions, which looks great. It's just unclear if that's what the funding will go towards or if it's for something else. In terms of artistic support, unfortunately, the application says that no artists would be paid by the organization and that no artists would benefit from the project. I'd encourage the applicant to think about their definition of artists, because generally I would consider any instructors being paid to run the program, artists in Indiana, and also any students that would benefit from the program are also Indiana artists. So I would have loved to see those numbers included in that artist support section so that, it could award some points for that. In terms of community engagement and inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, I appreciated inclusion of things in here, but I'm left wondering if Miami County is an underserved community. I imagine likely it is, and I imagine that the people being involved in this program, that there's probably some underserved there. I just would have loved to hear about it in the application, because unfortunately we can, only award points based on what we have here. So information about who it would serve specifically, why those people are underserved, or how that impact on those people would be measured would be very helpful in this kind of part of an application. And I'd also would have loved some more information on how the program, the how of the program, how are we doing things? How is it affecting those people? Things like that. For project management, it's a little unclear, provided it looks like perhaps the application is for a beginner's guide to guitar program, but the application has a start date for a project of July 5th and runs through June 5th of the next year. But based on the information provided, it looks like it's just an 8-week guitar program. So some clarity here would have been really helpful. Again, more information is better. The budget's also a little confusing. There is a line for $6,600 for year-round facility rental, which that sounds like how much it would cost to rent a facility year-round. But all of the other budget items, which is like 12% of the total budget, seems to just be for one project. It says there's $60 for snacks and folders. I can't imagine that lasting for a whole year. And there's a vague transportation fee. So just some clarity, more information, let us know what you're doing so that we can award those points and help get things, have it make sense. So it makes it a lot easier to award points. And if the application is for a full year of classes, it would have been spectacular to see that in the application. And it would have been a little easier to award points on that. So overall, just, some more clarity and more just showing the good things that this organization is doing or would be doing would help a lot in the future. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Stephanie. We will move on to our second reader, which is Jonah.
I agree with Stephanie on a lot of her points. Just a few things I would maybe add in the community engagement section. It mentions that they serve Miami County and a number of populations, but it doesn't really get into many specifics about outside of offering remote instruction. That's the one example they provide. I wish there was a little bit more specific information about how they're trying to reach every community that they list. And then as well as their surveys and evaluations, it says they take them, but it doesn't really specify any kind of data or how they measure the impact, how that data gets analyzed and whether or not it affects the program. So I think just to echo what Stephanie said, just in regards to these issues as well, more information would be a little bit better. And then it does mention earlier in the application that it says funds will be used to select equipment, peripherals, musical instruments, instruction, and recital. But if you go down to the budget, it looks like most of the money in the expense column is under the building rental. So I would like either a little more clarity or just the two statements don't really match with each other. So that's just one more thing I would add. Thank you.
Are there any new, additional, or opposing comments from the remainder of the panel?
I have a couple comments. I wanted to commend this application because it was a new project, and that's always exciting to see. It also means you don't always necessarily have the data. So I wanted to offer some suggestions that you could do as it being a new project and you don't have surveys yet, all of that. On the data section, or if you're looking for talking about demographics and who's being served, you can always pull that as public demographics of what is your region and area. You could pull it from the school systems. A lot of times that's a great place to pull data from, and then you can really build a program based on that, or partner with a like a local library or something that would have that, and they could kind of share and help launch that project for you. I also wanted to contrast the timeline that was written there a little bit. On the project timeline scope, they wrote out a very detailed project timeline for beginning guitar. It listed it as 8 weeks, and then the other sections that are there, I would assume that they're going to have a similar breakdown, but they don't have all that curriculum written yet. So I just wanted to commend like the detail that was written into the beginning guitar or the guide to guitar. And I think you could write a statement in the application just as a suggestion of this curriculum will be similar to what you see listed above, but hasn't been adapted yet due to timeline or something like that. There's some small sentences that could really buffer some gaps that you have missing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from the panel, please go ahead and update those scores and let me know when you're ready to proceed to the next application. Great, thanks everybody. We will move on to our third applicant, which is the Noble County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Our first reader will be Jessica.
Thank you. Give me just a second to switch some screens here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and again list these based on the three sections we have here. So the first one is artistic quality. This section was very clearly written. It accounts for data from previous festivals to expand. It's the language is very clear on how you're using that data to expand on the current proposal. And there's an incredible list of artists noted that are able to participate and impact the larger audience. If I had to give a piece of suggestion, I would love a little bit more information about the demographics of your survey respondents and the response rate. I think that's one area that could just buffer up that section a little bit. Something I was very curious about looking at your vast data. Artistic support, I think it was a strength of this application. I don't have any questions or further clarification needed there. Going down to community engagement. It's very evident that the IDEA is an ongoing discussion throughout your planning and implementation of the festival. It very clearly targets the audience, rural, those with a language barrier. It's always good to see that that's being considered low income, etc. I would encourage an additional note for accessibility access. I'm sure that's happening based on how the other areas of the application are written, or especially for those with disabilities. And you've got a lot of notes of working with elderly populations and things like that. So that's an area that could be added there, although I'm sure it's covered in your discussions. Going down to project management, I thought that was very thorough in this application as well. I appreciated seeing it listed out per month, and even the note that December is kind of your time to relax before you gear back up. The budget's very, very detailed, so I really commend the community initiative and the arts that this festival has reached across the region. Thank you.
Thank you. And our second reader will be Stephanie.
Thanks. I don't have a ton to add. I found the application, as Jessica mentioned, was quite well written, and a lot of details were included, and questions and applications were answered well. So echoing mostly what she said, there is a lot of good, a couple tiny spots to tweak. Just on a fun note, I'd like to give a shout out to the incognito cloggers among your wide variety of different performers that it sounds like will be there. It's just really nice, and I appreciated all the details in the application. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'll open it up to the full panel for any new or additional comments. All right, seeing none, go ahead and update those scores and let me know when you are ready to move on to our next application. Awesome, enthusiastic thumbs up all around. I love it. So our next applicant for review will be Parkview Huntington Family YMCA. And our first reader is Jonah.
I thought this application was fairly strong overall. Just going down our list of criteria for artistic quality, I thought it was very clear about how things are structured, scheduled. It was great to see that one of the instructors was a participant of the program themselves. So they're very clearly trying to look inward and focus on developing the community at large as well as their program. For artistic support, they offered a great list of involves local artists. For community engagement, I thought everything was also very strong in this, was very strong in this section. The provided materials all seemed very well in order. And then I thought the budget in the timeline was well worked out too. It seems that, and everything was reflective of a program that has been going and developing and well sustained. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Our second reader for this application will be Ashley.
Yeah, I have a lot of positive feedback. A lot of it was the same kind of things that Jonah pointed out. In particular, I thought that their IDEA answer was very thoughtful. That they're thinking about how they can market in Spanish language and having translators. They're using inclusive language. They're very thoughtful about how they live in a community where they're not sure how the LGBTQ community is perceived, so they want to make sure they're a welcoming space. They make good points about private instruction being good for students with ADHD and the program timing, reducing transportation barriers. They have a lot of really, really thoughtful things in that arena. They mentioned that they have a program committee for that participants are welcome to join, and they have evaluations and community partners. I wonder if they ever survey audiences, and if the program committee are they welcoming parents, or are like teenagers able to join, those kinds of things. But in general, they get a lot of input. Particularly, they mentioned that they had adaptive dance classes, and they received feedback that students with different abilities would rather be a part of regular the other dance classes, but with accommodations made. And so they pivoted in that regard. Yeah, a lot of thought going into their programming in this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I'll open it up to the full panel for any new, opposing, or additional comments. Stephanie.
Yeah, I just have a quick one for a little place to be improved. In the artist support section, they have that 14 artists are directly benefiting, and this is presumably the teachers, which is great. But for other artists that would benefit the program, they said 0. And I would consider, students involved in the program as artists. And I think that including that number in that section would help be a little bit more compelling, and to really think about, it doesn't have to be professional artists. It can also be people learning for that section. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So go ahead and get those scores updated, and we will move on when you are ready. Great, thank you all. Our fifth applicant is the Peabody Public Library. And for this application, our first reader will be Ashley. So Ashley, when you're ready.
I am also reading in order of the evaluation criteria we have here in front of us, which starts with artistic quality. It's a great idea for a library to showcase local art. That's a wonderful place for people to go and absorb local art. One of the artistic quality links didn't work, just as a note. In artist support, I think it's really great that they're opening up to artists that both live in Whitley County and work in Whitley County. Also, they mention a lot that their library doesn't necessarily serve every every inch of Whitley County, but they really want everybody in the county to be involved and have the opportunity to have their art shown, which is nice. The narrative mentioned prizes, but this artist support section doesn't say anything about artists being paid, I think. Yeah, it doesn't say that artists will be paid. So I was a little confused on that. The narrative mentioned prizes multiple times. So I don't know if that's like in-kind donations or if it's monetary prizes or what. As Stephanie has been noting, they mention here that no other artists will benefit from the project, but they're showing art. So there will be artists benefited with their art being shown in this art show, even if they're not being paid. Under community engagement, it's great that just by being in a rural area, a more rural area, this will serve an underserved community, and there will be multiple age groups represented. They mentioned partnering with Easter Seals and schools, so they're trying to include people with different abilities and youth and teens, but they don't mention partnering with care facilities or people that would reach older adults. They don't mention anything about race, but they did address a barrier by making it free to enter, which is great. The library seems to have clear plans to speak to constituents about the art show now that it's being planned, but there isn't mention of community input when the project was first being proposed. So I'm curious about where the idea came from and if there was a call for it in the community. They have great ways to measure impact. Yeah, the project management looks sound too. Everything looks reasonable. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. We will move on to our second reader for this applicant, which is Stephanie.
Great. Yeah. And I, echoing a lot of things that Ashley said, I think this application has a lot of really strong points in it. I also really appreciated that this grant wouldn't just serve in this grant period, that this is, going to be used to purchase supplies and things that will make this be able to happen annually. So it'll have a longer impact, which is nice. And I appreciated that they explained that. Like Ashley said about the artist support, I would suggest that they look at that and remember anyone that is doing art that is supported is included in that. I think if the estimated number of participants in the exhibition would have been a very acceptable answer for how many other artists will benefit from this project, and that would have helped earn some extra points there. I think, again, it's really obvious that they're thinking about how to include the community. I really appreciated that they use social media impressions as interactions as something for feedback. I think that's often overlooked by people that aren't that tech savvy, but that is a really good way to pull some impact, or at least an additional avenue for that. And yeah, the budget looked good. I really appreciated that they have all of the items that they're going to need to order already selected and that they listed that in the application. Those details are greatly appreciated. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any new opposing or additional comments from the remainder of the panel?
I just wanted to add a note. I actually really commended the community engagement piece. I know the application asked how will input be included for the communities that you're targeting. And I thought it was a very incredible list that was noted there of how you're working directly with the communities. And I also was impressed by speaking to another library that has a similar program and pulling the data points and incorporating that in here to kind of justify where that's coming from and what that need is. I thought that was very detailed and very well done.
Thank you. Jonah, I saw your hand go up as well, so I want to make sure I give you the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Jessica about the community engagement portion. So one possibly suggestion I would maybe have is for the IDEA portion. They it seems as though they're very committed to being very inclusive and diverse, and they have a few strategies. They have a few strategies listed here, but I would have appreciated just maybe a couple more specific strategies they have of reaching out to populations that they haven't already gotten to. It talks about we're trying to include the art of different populations and stuff, but it doesn't mention any of which of those populations it might be or how they're going to reach them. And I'm sure they are. I just think a little more information would have been helpful.
Thank you, Jonah. All right, I'll give you guys an opportunity to update those scores. Awesome. Looks like we are all ready to proceed. So with our next application, we do have a conflict of interest. So I'm going to have to ask that we put Ashley into our virtual waiting room. We'll bring her back once the application is been reviewed. Our next applicant is Purdue University Fort Wayne College of Visual and Performing Arts. And our first reader will be Stephanie.
Great, thanks, Heather. I really appreciate the application here and all of the details that they included. And again, going in order of our rubric that we have, they do a good job of showing in the application that there's definitely an immense artistic quality to this program, this would be their second year. I really appreciate that. Though the previous year's project is still ongoing and not done, so they weren't able to really give specifics on feedback. The application did do a pretty good job of giving ways that they are going to take feedback from this current season or year that's happening, and how they'll apply it to the program in the next year. I think the news video that they included was really compelling. It just was a nice, succinct way to show what this group is doing and showing a variety of different students in the program. I thought was nice to see, and made it easy to see what they're doing. Based on the application, it's clear a lot of our Indiana artists are benefiting. It's a great opportunity for college students that are music education majors to get experience at middle school as well. I appreciate that part of the funding is to provide a stipend to the middle school teachers so that they can work with the program while being compensated appropriately, and including that information was helpful. For community engagement, I appreciated a lot of things in this section, things like providing dinner and carpooling assistance, and that they have their rehearsal centrally located, are all great things that they're doing to improve inclusion and access. So it's nice to see, thinking about a lot. I also appreciated their marketing materials that they provided. I thought it was simple but effective, which I think is really good to make it easier for students to be in this. I think the more specific you can get with details about the demographics, the better. So it's always a good idea to provide as many metrics as you can. I also understand that the first year of the program hasn't finished yet, but generalized things can be really helpful in being compelling. I thought project management wise, it's clear that they have the leadership to continue with this program. And the budget looks reasonable and thought out. I appreciate that, things like sheet music and books and marketing costs are all on there. They all look accurate to me. And, while the bulk of the grant is sort of going towards meals for students, I think that's a great way to increase access to this artistic program for students. So overall, quite a nice application with a few spots that could be improved, but thank you for all of the details in there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our second reader on this will be Jessica.
Good morning. My comments are pretty short and sweet. I don't have a lot to add. I did actually want to call out and commend, particularly with this being a newer project, that the data points you did pull. If I have a high horse that I get in on panels, it's always the looking at demographics and making sure you have a good understanding of the community that we were working with. And I really appreciated the amount of thought and effort that went into pulling initial points to really hone in on the community that you are serving as you're finishing up your first year. So thank you for that. I have no additional comments.
Thank you. Jonah, since you're the remaining of our panelists, do you have anything to add?
I just think to highlight it's so clear based on a number of responses scattered around the application that they're committed to really maximizing the experience on both ends, both for the students involved, the teachers involved, and the FWCS students, the DFW students, and the teachers. There's clear thought being put into all three of those fronts about how to make the experience as best as possible. And it's just such a great opportunity on all the ends, and it's great that they're really fleshing it out to make sure that all groups are being served that are involved.
Great, thank you. So I will give you guys the opportunity to update those scores, and if we could bring Ashley back from limbo, that would be amazing. Right. All right, so once Ashley is back in, looks like she's joining us now. Wonderful. Welcome back, Ashley. We missed you. So we will now move on to our next application, which is the Rediscover Downtown Peru. And Ashley, you are actually our first reader on this. So when you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, this application is for the Cole Porter Festival. Under artistic quality and goals, I thought the goals that they mentioned were interesting. That the project started as a way to promote the city and its history, that's interesting, and to inform audiences about Cole Porter. I think there could be stronger goals for what's happening in the festival today. I think it's probably still great for the city. It brings about some tourism, and I'm sure a lot of people learn a lot more about Cole Porter because of that event. But if there could be more specifics, I think that would be a plus. A lot of good information followed that initial statement with the rundown of the schedule of what will happen during the event. So there's a little bit of everything, different kinds of music, and a Cole Porter impersonator. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on during their festival. In artist support, the question is about Indiana artists, and most of the artists are from Indiana. One of the links for the artistic example was for Nostalgia Entertainment, which is from Chicago. It seems to be a for-profit group. In the application, they mentioned that the people coming were originally from their town, which is great, but I'm not sure how much we consider them Indiana artists if they're not living in Indiana now. That's a legitimate question. I'm not sure. But that seems to be great otherwise, a lot of local artists. This program is for a rural population. So it's reaching out to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to get this kind of in-depth experience with Cole Porter. As the applicant mentioned, the local audiences will be mostly white, so it is appreciated that they seek out diversity when hiring performers. They do in-depth audience surveys. I would like to see local musicians consulted in the planning of the night that they're involved in. They have this cover tune night where people perform Cole Porter pieces and other genres. And I would love to see local musicians consulted in the planning of that. They have a very strong staff in the the project management section. Strong staff, they have the resources to make this a strong event with regional appeal. My comments are mostly about the timeline. They wait until 4 or 5 months before the festival to choose a headliner and announce it. And then, according to the timeline, they wait until about 3 weeks before the festival to market it. And I think choosing the headliner earlier, marketing a lot sooner would create opportunities for more people in the region to attend. Especially since they're looking for this to be kind of a tourism growth thing, which is great for them. I think more people would be able to participate with more lead time. But yeah, the budget looks good, and it's a fun festival, it sounds like.
Thank you, Ashley. And our second reader for this applicant will be Jonah.
I agree with Ashley on pretty much all of her comments. The only thing I would maybe add is in the community engagement section. They list a number of underserved populations, but it doesn't exactly say how. And the descriptions of their IDEA strategies are also a little vague. They do mention that they're trying to improve, but it doesn't really say how they're trying to diversify. And I think just speaking of what Ashley said as well, I think inclusion of local musicians and the diverse and maybe some organizations or representatives of the diverse populations that they're trying to serve in the planning process would probably be both helpful and set them on their way towards those goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. I'll open it up to the panel for any new, additional, or opposing comments. All right, seeing none, please update those scores as needed and let me know when you are ready to move on. Awesome, thank you all. We will move on to our 8th application, which is the Steuben Art Scene. And our first reader, when you're ready, will be Jessica.
Okay, let me scroll back up here. All right, starting with artistic quality. I thought the goal section was very clearly written here and based from feedback from a successful initial year. It's always exciting to see improvements and things that can be made after a pilot year. The artists listed are very well qualified and the impact is directly geared toward a rural community. I commend the wide community reach that this project covers with 3 distinct branches. It mentions the professional series, the general series, the youth series. So that's very exciting. Going to artistic support, the compensation is clear. It's available to artists that participate in a growing initiative. There was not an artistic example listed, and I would like to see images from the previous year, or you could include documents from the pilot year, because I think based on reading the text, there's a lot of great things happening here. But it would be great to actually see that in action after the first year. Going down to community engagement. Let me scroll here. I think community engagement and the IDEA strategies are a real strength of this application. The targeted community is broad, but it specifically calls to rural youth as well as aging populations. I commend the diverse board and the community outreach for feedback and inclusion are all included here. I do have a note that in the application, it uses the language that there's communication with key stakeholders, and that's a very broad and diverse group. It's important to just keep in mind that when you're talking about a community, you've got to be cognizant that not all participants within in a select community are necessarily in those leadership positions that would be at your key stakeholder meetings. So I would just encourage you to maybe make sure you're talking beyond just the leadership or heads. I think that's a great starting place, but I think you could grow even further into that. And then I would encourage the use of surveying directly the participants for targeted data points. There was a lot of anecdotal stories, but I think you could get some hard bulleted data points that you could include in future applications. Moving to project management, again, you had a really great, successful first year, and so you've got clear project management that was really well thought through. I'd like to see more specific details about how work is divided among the board. So how many people are needed to fill specific roles? I know it talks that those conversations have happened, but are there numbers of people from the board that have been confirmed? How many board members are participating? It'd be nice to see that, as opposed to noting that it's covered, but how is it covered as far as volunteers and things along that. Project timeline looks to have been copied from an Excel document, is my assumption, and it didn't translate well into the form, so I had a little bit of difficulty reading that timeline. I can see that what was submitted was very detailed about work that was needing to be done. What I would like to see built in that I didn't find in what was copied in here was any kind of direct surveying or community conversations. It mentions in the text that those are happening, but I would like to see where those are happening, even if it's continuous, just putting those bullets into your timeline. And then also making sure that you have time that you're analyzing that feedback. It's not just a phase for collection. It's something that is intentionally built out as opposed to organically happening throughout. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to our second reader, which it looks like is Stephanie.
Great, thanks. I think Jessica covered most of it, but just a few community engagement points I'd like to add. They mentioned that they are casting a wide net, and while that is totally great, I imagine that they already have some strategies being used to make it more accessible to underserved communities, like kids, seniors, low-income people, their rural information about, if they're doing anything to help with transportation issues or languages or disability access, that would have, been a great way to get some extra points there. I'd also encourage for measuring impact to try and measure some things other than outcomes, other than attendance. I would try to measure some outcomes. And so if you surveyed participants to see how maybe programs have impacted their mental health or sense of community or other things, that could be some really compelling information. Also, I just want to mention the social media reach is a little bit small for this program, and that's kind of all that was included for marketing stuff. So if you're doing any digital marketing or print marketing, it would have been awesome to hear about it. That or things like traffic data for the website could be helpful just to show us the things that you are doing for that section. But that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Are there any new comments from the remainder of the panel? Go ahead, Ashley.
Everything that Jessica and Stephanie said were great. My last thing, maybe it's small to everybody else, I don't know, but the title says Arts Education and Conference, and then the rest of the application doesn't say anything about a conference. It just seems like it's about their ongoing year-round activities. So if there is a conference and you want funding for that, then you should talk about it. If there is not, or if there is a conference but you don't need funding for it, then take that out of the title or something. It set me up to expect something very different from what I was reading. So that's just feedback for semantics and things for the future.
Go ahead, Jonah.
Overall, I think it was very strong. I'd like to echo a lot of the points of Stephanie and Jessica and Ashley as well. But one thing I would maybe suggest for measuring their impact in the community engagement section is, I think with something like this, especially when you're stating about how you're targeting a bunch of different populations, I think it would be helpful if you were if you collected some qualitative data as well as just quantitative about how fast the classes fill up and stuff like that. I feel like if you were to collect some more descriptive data from both your participants and then maybe people that see the pieces and interact with the pieces, it could help you inform your program development.
Great, thank you so much. All right, if you would take a moment to update those scores within the system. Still give me a thumbs up so I know that you have completed that, but there has been a request for a 5-minute break, which we are happy to accommodate. Awesome. So it looks like everybody is updated. Right now the time is 10:54, just turned 10:55. So we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll get started back at 11 a.m. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We'll wait till everybody gets their videos up and rolling again. And great, it looks like we're all here. So we will dive into our final 4 applications that we have. Our next applicant is the ARC of Northeast Indiana, Easter Sealed ARC of Northeast Indiana. And when you are ready, our first reader will be Jonah.
I thought this application was fairly strong overall. There was a little bit of in the artistic in the first section regarding artistic quality. There's a little bit of vague language as to what services exactly are being offered and how, although it does mention a lot that they've sort of revamped the program several times over the years. So it looks, I think I was able to grasp that it's mostly facilitated by the one in-house person now at this point. But I could have used, I think, a little bit more information as to exactly what it sort of looks like when the services are being provided. Under community engagement, I thought that was all very strong. The purpose of the organization is very obviously to reach out to underserved populations, and there's a lot of great person-centered language regarding all of their services and how exactly they're developing the program. I thought that was all very good. And then in terms of project management, I thought everything was pretty solid, although I was a little intrigued in terms of the expenses. It listed $4,000 for art supplies, which if you divide that by the number of people they're serving, it seems a little low for a year-round program, but I'm just not entirely sure. I guess I just wish I had a little bit more information about that. Because when I looked at the samples of work that were provided, it seems like those were very nice things that I just wasn't sure if the amount of money that they've listed would stretch for those kinds of products for all of the involved people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. And our second reader will be Ashley.
I thought Jonah made some good observations, and I agree with a lot of what he said. In the beginning of the application, I was also confused about who was teaching, but it looks like they're paying one person, one artist. So I suppose that is the art director on staff, and that he will be teaching. In the community engagement section, they benefit people with disabilities. Some of those people are low income. They mention a youth camp in addition to the adults that they serve. So they're serving a lot of people. But the question number 3, what IDEA strategies or initiatives will be utilized in this project? Their answer for that question is talking about customized instruction. I suppose that's an IDEA strategy. One-to-one, like individualized instruction, weekly group activities. They're talking about like the activities that will happen, but don't directly answer the question about the IDEA strategies and initiatives. And we can infer the strategies and initiatives that are being used from how they answer the other questions. But it would have been good to have a direct answer to that direct question. But the marketing pieces look nice. The artistic example is beautiful. And yeah, otherwise, there are a lot of strong things in this application, but some unanswered questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any new, opposing, or additional comments to add from the remainder of the panel? All right. Seeing none, go ahead and get those scores and comments finalized. You know when you are ready to move on. Great, thank you all. Our next application will be the Literacy Alliance. And for this, I have Jessica listed as our first reader.
Thank you. Let me get open here. Okay, artistic quality. My initial comment for this section was what an incredible collaboration. It's always exciting to read about different avenues that the arts community is working together. And so I was very excited about how well this section was written. It's clear there's a very high artistic quality presented and strong growth from the initial production being within the pandemic. So exciting to see things thrive after that or adapt from something that was successful in the pandemic. I would encourage you to utilize audience surveys to guide your future planning. It seems like the Arena Dinner Theater has that built into their side, but I think the Literacy Alliance could really benefit from that as well. Certainly ticket sale data is an excellent start to that, but I think you could really expand upon that. Artistic support, I didn't have any questions in that section. I thought that was very, very clearly written. So going down to the community engagement, the IDEA section, I commend the communication and education that's happening between both organizations and the call out to boards and volunteers, how they're working together. It's always exciting to hear about that for reaching larger community, both underserved and targeted. It sounds like, again, that the Arena Dinner Theater kind of has their own process in place to talk to their audience. And I just think there's a lot you can build out that would also really enhance this section. So the next steps for that would be to really include some mission-driven questions from the Literacy Alliance to make sure that both organizations are getting meaningful quantitative data, not just anecdotal data. That I think that's always really important. And I know on the grant side, those anecdotal stories are really, really pivotal, but you'll want to make sure that you can bullet out some future data points for as you grow the project later on, and that'll enhance how your community impact is, community engagement sections are growing. So going down to project management, I think the growth of this program that has happened is really a testament to the good project management that has happened historically. I would like to see a little bit more detail on the project timeline that was submitted. And then again, when you're looking at your timeline, make sure that you're including or incorporating your audience feedback and analysis with the immediate month after the show, so that you know what that data is. And I'm especially looking for time that's budgeted to work with your respective communities intentionally, so not just organically. I think in the arts, there's a lot of great things that always kind of happen, and it's exciting and it leads to a lot of growth, but taking the time to really look at that and hone in, talking to those communities, making sure there's intentionality, because we have our own biases that can come from just things happening organically. So I would encourage that as you're looking at it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And our second reader for this application is Joan.
I appreciate a lot of Jessica's insights. I think they're great, and she highlighted a lot of the right things about this application. There was one answer that I think might have been misinterpreted in the application. That's the IDEA section in the community engagement process. I just noted that it seems as though the answer focuses on the barriers experienced by the organization and not necessarily by either the participants in the program itself or the attendees of the audience, that sort of thing. So I would just maybe encourage for the future that the applicants really look at the question and make sure they're answering the correct thing. And everything else seems okay. In the budget, I might have missed something in one of the earlier answers, but they've allocated almost $18,000 for food, much more than any of the other things. But I just wasn't really sure about that in terms of how it fit into the rest of because it's a dinner theater. Yeah, I think I would have appreciated a breakdown then of exactly how many attendees, how much food gets or how much money is allocated per table or whatever it happens to look like. I think that would just be helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any new or closing comments from the remainder of the panel? All right. Go ahead and get those scores updated then, please. So let me know when you are ready to proceed. Awesome, great. We will move on to our next application, which is the town of Parkview. And our first reader will be Ashley.
Hello. Starting with artistic quality, they want a community mural on a building that seems important to them, a community building. So they have a clear goal for wanting this mural, and a clear goal. They want to promote community. It seems like they have good ways to measure the impact. Then for artist support, they want to hire a local artist. So that's also great. Then next we have community engagement and IDEA. This community is rural, making its constituents underserved. The town meeting in which they discussed the mural, they say they had people of different ages, races, and socioeconomic levels. The artist that came to that meeting, who is one of 2 prospective artists for this mural, this artist's name is from the Latinx community. So that would be great if they have an underserved community represented by the artist. They didn't answer number 3, with the IDEA strategies. It looks like they ran out of time when they were writing their application, and they have a note in there to themselves about researching what those strategies could be. So it's nice that that they would like to look into that in the future. It seems that they tried to address equity and accessibility by making this mural public. So if that could have been spelled out more by answering the question, that would have been good. Tracking rentals of this space is a good way to gauge the impact of the mural. Some surveys and interviews would also provide good feedback for this. The attached document, the marketing document, doesn't include where or how the meeting was advertised. It includes the text that was used in the call for people to come to this meeting, but we can't gauge from this application who that actually reached. Some official calls for artist submissions or social media posts promoting the meetings or the project itself would all be helpful. For the project management, again, it seems like they ran out of time in making this application because there is no timeline. The staff that they referenced in the question about staffing would oversee the artist, but there's no information on the prospective artists. There's the artist that came to the meeting, and then they mention another artist that they contacted at another time, but they don't mention the qualifications of either of those people or what qualifications they're seeking in an artist. So it's great that they want to have a mural, but and they also included some examples of what a mural could be, but we don't know what the quality of that work will be and who will do it and those kinds of things. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And our second reader will be Jessica.
Thank you. I've got a couple additional comments to add. First of all, it's exciting. This is a new project, and so thank you for submitting and kind of learning the ropes of the IAC grant applications. I had a little bit of confusion in the artistic quality section about I think the project goals were very clearly written, but I got a little confused with the impact that this mural would be for. So I know it's being tracked later on in the application by rentals, but that makes me question, is this mural in a place, the community building has a lot of meaning, is this a place that is publicly accessible when it's not being used for rentals, or how else is the space used so that it's not explicitly for people with rentals? Are there festivals or celebrations or something that are happening that are free and open, or inviting people to view and be part of that space? I would love that information and that data. And then I had, let me see, I don't want to repeat comments here. Just a suggestion, as you're working through applications, there were a couple points that were missing in here. I was under the assumption that you might have been working from this application directly in the system, and certainly you can do that. As somebody that writes a lot of grants for my organization, I think it's helpful for me, if that's what happened and why there's sections missing, I always pull out the questions and things like that, write them in like a Word document or some other text formatting document. So then if there's information that I need to remind myself, oh, I don't have that data yet, I haven't done that section yet, I highlight that in big, bold yellow so that I know, oh, I need to go talk to this person to get that data. And then I can just copy and paste it right into the server so nothing gets missed when you're submitting applications. So that's just a suggestion of something you can do to avoid that happening in the future. Same comments there. Let me see. I also wanted to, looking at the project management section, I know you're in discussion of hiring an artist. I think this might have been said, but I just wanted to clarify. I think it's really helpful that when you have somebody that you're expecting to run the project, that you really have out the goals listed and the expectations of that position. So as you're having a discussion, certainly there might be somebody in the community that's willing to work with you and put those things together. But if you as a committee or as a project leader, a city, or whatever that title is, have kind of expectations of a project to turn out a certain way, you want to list those qualifications up front, even at a minimum, so that you can have those expectations. And it also helps your artist be successful in the project. This is kind of what we're expecting. This is the timeline. And that's going to go back to like what the pay is that you have allocated. All of those things. I noticed the budget was very small. There was a very detailed list of in-kind donations, which told me there's a lot of exciting community initiatives to push this forward, or community buy-in to push it forward. But you just want to make sure that you think through what it is that you're having, so that the artist isn't biting off too much or getting themselves in a position that they're not able to meet expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Stephanie?
Yeah, just to add a little for the kind of marketing section, they provided a document that Ashley spoke about, but with the provided social media web links, what they put on there was a Facebook group. So I would just strongly encourage to, be at the town or whoever's organizing this, to have a Facebook page as well to reach more of your community. If that call for artists was only put on that Facebook groups posts are only seen by people that are members of the group. If you have a page instead, then algorithmically that can get out to people that live in your area or are in the community or might be interested to it. Even though it is a public group, just realize that only people that are members can see it. And I would suggest getting a Facebook page and kind of looking into if you're going to use or lean heavily on social media marketing, I would make sure you're looking into how things permeate through that space and how you can get your information out to more people rather than just the people that are in your little group. I think that could be helpful, making a Facebook page as well for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, go ahead and update your scores for application. Please let me know when you're ready to proceed. All right, so we are on our final application of today. We do have one panelist that we need to place into our waiting room for a conflict of interest, and that is Jessica. So we will see you again soon, Jessica. She is there. Perfect. We will go ahead and begin review of the University of St. Francis School of Creative Arts application, where, oh, Jessica's back. Oh, she's got it again. Perfect. There we go. Just want to make sure we're all squared away. So our first reader will be Stephanie.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so this application is for the Gestures program that they have. It's really cool to see that it's been running for 44 years. Really appreciate that there. I think there's a lot of obvious and well laid out in the application artistic quality for this program, and I appreciate the details. I like the inclusion of some specific details about how they've used past experience to inform their program and how they keep it going. I like that they've added voice to print technology and that they added a virtual program as well as afternoon classes. Just the details there and things that they've seen and how they've changed is really, really helpful. For artist support, I think it's really obvious that this will support Indiana artists. I appreciate the information about the Indiana artists that work with the program that benefit from the funds. And I think it's really clear that at least the requested grant amount would definitely go towards Indiana artists. And I appreciate the acknowledgement that the students that participate in the program are artists as well. So kudos for adding that number in that section. For community, I really appreciate a lot of the things in this section of the application. I think since it's listed that the group is for people with mild to severe IDDs, I think it would be really compelling if some of the participants could be involved in the planning or someone directly from the community, and that would just kind of help make it so that it's a program really working with the community rather than just serving them. So because you have such a range there, I wonder if there could be some inclusion directly from the community, and if that's already happening, it'd just be wonderful to see it in the application. I appreciate the qualitative feedback data for the outcomes of the program. That I appreciate that was mentioned. I would have loved to see the numbers in the application. So just a little bit more specifics, could have got a few more points there to get, a really high score. Participation numbers looks great. However, the materials and the links provided show how the organization promotes the final performance and information about that. But I would have loved to see in the application how new participants are added, or how you get people, how you're reaching out to underserved portions of this community to get them involved as well. It's likely already happening. It'd just be great to hear about it in the application. It was just kind of also unclear how new participants would find out about the application or find out about the program or sign up to be involved. So just hearing about that in the application could have, warranted an even higher score. The project management looks great. It's obvious why this has been happening for so long. I appreciate all the details there. It seems very well managed. The leadership is in place. You have good timeline and budget. And I appreciate all the specifics provided in the application. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Stephanie. And our second reader will be Jonah.
I'm going to echo Stephanie. I thought everything on the whole was extremely well laid out, extremely well. There's a lot of details provided for pretty much every facet that they were addressing. My only comment I'd like to add is in the community engagement section. For some of the prompts, they used a lot of terms that I felt probably could have used just a little bit of definition or clarification for someone that wasn't embedded within the program already. Just things like makerspace, test party, social session. I did look them all up, and then I was able to sort of figure out what they were hinting at, but I do think it would be helpful just for the sake of when you're reading the application to either just provide a small definition, because I think it just helps give a lot of clarity to being able to imagine what the program is actually looking like. But everything else I thought was very good.
Thank you. Any additional comments to add? All right. So while you guys are finalizing those scores, I think we can bring Jessica back in from the waiting room. Welcome back, Jessica. We didn't want you to miss out on the wrap up of today's panel. So this concludes the second of Region 3's Arts Project Support Grant Panels. Thank you all so much, panelists, for your wonderful feedback in today's panel. I'm sure it is very much appreciated. And applicants will be notified of the status of their grant following the June commission meeting. If you have any questions, please contact Phil Slane, the Region 3 Program Manager. Panelists, please hang on to the Zoom call here for a moment, but for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.